by Mayor Mitch Roth and scientist in
Well,
charge of USGS, Ken Hahn. Thank you for joining us, gentlemen.
good to be
Thanks,
here.
thanks, Dane. And I'm in charge of the USGS
Oh,
Hawaiian Volcano. Right.
Sorry.
There's some other people way above my pay grade that are in charge of the USGS.
well, we're trying to, we
soon,
just
soon, soon.
soon.
And just to make it clear, I'm not looking for that promotion.
All right.
I'm perfectly happy right here where I am.
Well, you've been doing a great job. I appreciate you both for joining us. I just want to see kind of first off, what is the latest update that you can provide for the community?
Well, I think there's stuff on the volcano, but USGS has got out there and they have a YouTube webpage with a live cam that will be up as long as it stays up. But you go to Maunaloa Eruption live cam, and it's the USGS camera. It's about a mile off of the fissure, and it's showing active volcanoes. So
Yeah, definitely. We just shared that link onto Tracker as well. So anybody that's looking for that link to go find that webcam, it is on YouTube, and USGS. It's being reposted all over the place. So definitely check out that webcam. It's really good frame rate. A lot of people have complained like, oh, the USGS webcams, they only update every 5 minutes or 10 minutes. This one is very high frame rate and it's very good. I appreciate the all the work, all these new temporary cameras. Do you want to talk about some of the efforts that's gone forward with all these temporary cameras again?
Sure. And, this is not me doing it. We have a really good field crew and particularly Kevin Kamabashi. He's our lead field engineer and his crew, Stephen and the rest of the guys that are in there have really been working to get these cams out here so that everybody can get better views of this eruption. Um, yeah, and I know people have always wanted us to put live cams out there, but our seismic data kind of takes the first bit of the highway. We got to make sure we get that. And the bandwidth has always been a problem. So we got this on a cellular modem. We put in a whole bunch of quarters into the meter, and we'll see how long it runs before we run out of data for the month on the plan for that. But those live cams take up a lot of data, and I know people have looked at Iceland, but the Icelandic live cams were put together by their TV station, their national TV station that had a satellite truck and everything out there. So it's a little bit more difficult here, but Kevin's overcome a lot of obstacles, and we've got a live cam there, and we also have a new webcam that is looking at a closer look of the saddle. It's from one of the pu'us right up there by the Mana Road turnoff above the sheep station. And so we're going to actually be able to segment that. That's actually a webcam that we can zoom in on things. So we're hoping to be able to zoom in onto the lava flow. We still have a little bit more computer work to put up different scenes on that. We also have several other webcams up at the, just taking photos up around the rift zone and looking at, there's one that looks at the channel and one that looks at the vent. And so those webcams they're only taking stills again, but there's some different views up there. So people that are interested can go up and take a look for themselves.
All right. We understand how hard it is to provide those live feeds in those remote areas. We've been working with Two Pineapples. There are some YouTubers as well to try and do live feeds for 8 hours up at Kilauea Caldera. And it's just incredibly difficult. There's all kinds of issues.
Yeah.
So I applaud the effort for trying to make that happen and getting it up and going. See how long it goes.
Yeah. Well, this is such an extraordinary event and hard for anybody else to get up and see. If you want to see the Kilauea Lava Lake, you can go out and see the Kilauea Lava Lake. The park has it all set up. But this is, it's you can't access this vent. And so this is a really special event that we figured is worth getting this out to the public. So as far as the rest of the lava flow, things are pretty much the same. The lava crept a little bit closer to the road. At the closest point, it's only about 2.25 miles away now. It's moving slowly. Our models show that even 2 weeks from the start of the eruption, it probably won't reach the road by then. But there is a lot of variability in these models and a lot of things that can change. So I just want to couch that. We're not saying that within 2 weeks it will be at the road or won't be at the road, but our modeling suggests that it will still be short of the road after 2 weeks from the start of the eruption. So nothing to immediately worry about. And the lava flow is moving right now at a rate of about 25 yards an hour. We expect that to continue to slow as the lava flow thickens. The one thing I really want to get across, Dane and Philip, is that we have thermal mapped the summit. We've also got a radar image of the whole summit and the lava flows. We know the distribution of the initial fissures and lava flows that went through Makuavale caldera and out to the edge of the summit. And when we talk about the summit again, it's the greater area up around there. It's not just Makuavale. There's a series of collapse pits and some filled collapse pits that some people, I think, are mistaking as the Southwest Rift Zone. That's not what we consider. And there's a larger structure that's faintly visible on the surface that outlines that whole area. But the eruption did not leave the summit area at the initial start of the eruption. And there is no activity up there. There is a fissure still fuming up there, and it periodically glows because it was hot. Most of the lava flows are quite cool compared to the active flows now. But they did go down kind of the southwest side, spill out from that summit area and go down a ways. But like we were saying at the time, that historically that's happened in a number of eruptions, most particularly in the 1949 and 1851 eruptions, sent lava flows exactly down that same track. So that's what people in Kona were seeing. There is no activity in the Southwest Rift Zone. There is no seismicity. There is no chance that this eruption is going to reactivate on the Southwest Rift Zone. This eruption is over on the Northeast Rift Zone, and it is there to stay. The longer it stays at this vent, the less probable another vent that opens up is going to be. So the only other thing that could change is you could have a vent open up at a lower elevation on the Northeast Rift Zone. But none of that will reach the folks in Kau and South Kona. So those guys, for this eruption, we dodged a bullet. It didn't go that way. What we can say is sometime in the future, it will go that way. Just not this time, right? So people can relax out there right now.
Right. And there's
thanks for
go ahead.
Yeah, thanks for clarifying that. Just one follow up on that. Do you know offhand the lowest elevation lava actually reached on flowing down that southwest side?
No, but I would say it made it about maybe on the order of 2 to 4 kilometers from the crest of the ridge down that side, which is less than the 1949 made it. I don't know the elevation right off, but maybe 11,000, 12,000 feet. I don't think it got down to 11,000 feet even, but I have not looked at that, so I'm just guessing from looking at the imagery.
And the summit is at 12,000 feet and higher, is that correct? Or would you like to refine that?
I wouldn't put an elevation on it. We look at structures, right?
Gotcha.
So there's a bunch of collapsed structures up there and subtle faulting. That's what we look at to define the summit, rather than it's not just a simple elevation ring. It's actually a structural summit where we know that there's a magma body under there because withdrawal of that magma causes collapsed structures to form. So it's based on physical characteristics of sitting over the summit magma chamber.
Understood. Yeah, just trying to make it a little simpler for people. So people could have seen lava like from the very top of that western side at 13,000 feet, say, flow down to 12,000 feet, and all within a summit. And it might have looked from Kona like the lava was flowing towards them, but all within a summit region.
And it certainly did look that way. I do not begrudge anybody from thinking that lava was coming down there. But if you turned on that night and looked at our webcams that looked straight up the Southwest Rift Zone, you could see the lava flow going off to the left from the summit and nothing coming down the rift zone at it, right? So that's how we were tracking it that night. So we were watching it, believe me, we were watching it constantly. And there was definitely, a sigh of relief at 5 a.m. when we saw those Northeast fissures open up and knew that all the wonderful people in our community that lived down in there were no longer, in the path of this eruption.
Excellent. Go ahead, Dane.
I had a question about the eruption itself, and have we seen any changes in the output from Fissure 3? I know we've seen some at Fissure 4, but Fissure 3 seems to be the king of the dance right now. Is it is it changed? We've seen the spatter cone or the spatter rampart build up around it, and it kind of looks different on the webcams, but has there been any difference in the output?
Well, right now we're just estimating the output, so we don't have a real good handle. There's a couple ways we do that. In our initial estimations, we're looking at the widths of the channel and the speed of the lava, but what we don't know is the depth of the channel or the channel shape, right? So that means that we're using intuition and making some estimates about that to get those. And so we have a pretty broad range of about 50 to 100 cubic meters a second. The Fissure 3 is now the only fissure that's active. Fissure 4 died overnight, so there's nothing coming out of it at all. It was not putting out much before, so it's hard to know if that added a little bit to Fissure 3 or not, because we really got a plus or minus 50 to 100% on our estimate, right? And like kind of in there. It's a pretty rough estimate, but it's probably less than the roughly 150 to 200,000 cubic meters a second that 2018 put out. And same thing with the 1950 was putting out in that range, right? So it looks reasonable for the kind of lava flows we're producing. We still have not gotten all the photogrammetry flights that will allow us to build the topographic models to actually get the volume of lava that's been erupted. And that's quite a complex trick in this braided channel thing, and we're looking at 8 or 10 miles of lava flow. So it's a lot of work to build those models, and we're just trying to catch up with the outlines of the flows right now.
All right.
Can I jump in, Dane?
Yeah.
So there's been quite a lot of questions from the committee members who are interested in what's happening at Kilauea and the connection to Maunaloa, and whether they should worry about something happening in Kilauea. They recall that Pu'o'o was erupting at the same time as Maunaloa, the last time Maunaloa erupted, and people are still a little jumpy from the 2018 eruption. Could you expound on that a little bit?
I don't blame people from being a little bit jumpy about the 2018 eruption. The current setup on Kilauea, we're seeing no seismic activity in the lower East Rift Zone or the Middle East Rift Zone. And the upper East Rift Zone, which used to be inflating before this last lava lake started forming, is actually deflating. So it's losing mass and kind of going down. The summit is inflating some now, but everything, all the actions up at the summit, no signs of any magma migration. And just to be clear about the 1984 twin eruptions, this is the second time in history that we've documented these twin eruptions here, although they happen frequently during the 1800s, because there was another almost continuous lava lake in Kilauea. So Maunaloa was erupting and there was lava lake. So this is not really an uncommon thing. But at any rate, in 1984, the high fountain at Pu'o'o happened at its regularly scheduled time. They were about 20 days apart, and it happened pretty much right on time. So it was scheduled to happen. Think of it as an event that was there. And then this other circus came to town, which was the 1984 eruption, right? So kind of a new partner in there, and showed up and did its thing too. But so there was no sign that Maunaloa impacted the eruptive schedule of Kilauea. In the long term, there may be a relationship between the number of eruptions on Maunaloa and the amount of lava that Kilauea puts out, but even that's not really clear.
All right. So I think we can dive into some questions from the community. We put out a little questionnaire on Facebook and asked for people to submit their questions, and like to go through some of those. Looking at it, I think most of these are going to be for Mayor Roth.
Okay.
First one, does anybody know if you can pull into Pu'uhuluhulu on the side of the road and park instead of the old saddle? Is that open, or what's the status of Pu'uhuluhulu, or do you know?
So the parking lot of Pu'uhuluhulu was open as of the other night. You have the puka there, and so that is a possibility that the park there, is my understanding.
But it's very limited parking because there are plenty of people that want to walk to the top of the Pu'u. So yeah, not easy to get a space there.
Right. Next question. We'll just rapid fire through a few of these. Are there any plans to put trash bins for rubbish up along the new viewing area, or are there already trash bins?
There are not trash bins. There are porta potties. You know, we're hoping that people
Take their trash with them rather than throw the trash out. Yeah, you're in a
Right.
car. Leave no trace. We'd ask that people do that. The first night, I don't think we had any. I didn't get a report how many, if there was any trash left over last night, but I know we had a lot of people go through. I think we've had over 6,000 vehicles
Wow.
go through the traffic hazard mitigation route.
That's incredible. In just such a short time period.
Yeah.
All right. Next question. How does the road they are going to, this is about closing the road. So how close to the road are you going to plan to let it get before shutting down the saddle or old saddle viewing areas?
We just were in a meeting with a group of people, and we were discussing different ways. You know, the goal for me is to keep the road open as long as possible. We will be having some National Guards people. We'll probably be putting some barriers around the area where it is, because we don't want people hiking out there either, because that makes it really difficult. So we're discussing how do we keep the road open as long as possible, as safely as possible that we can do it. So it's really kind of difficult to tell. It's a very fluid situation. We don't expect it to start moving very quickly. We don't expect, I don't know, are we expecting any gases or anything that's a possibility, but not likely?
No, up there, you know, there's no vegetation to roll over, so no methane gas. And we just had a gas crew out to measure the gas on the front of the lava flow, and there was basically nothing to measure.
Yeah. So we're going to take all those variables this week and start discussing it. With what we've seen and where it's at right now, I feel comfortable, you know, leaving it open. But as we get closer, we're going to have people that want to go out there, and that's going to be something we can't allow to happen. It just that makes things a little bit too crazy. So we'll see during this week how long we can keep it open.
But based upon sorry, go ahead.
So just so your viewers know that, you know, right now the lava flow is actually within the boundary of Pohakuloa training area, that front of the lava flow. And it's actually in an endangered species kind of reserve. So it's not part that they used for training, but it is part that they're managing for endangered species there.
And that just is another factor that's added on there. I think that DLNR has already closed that area off to protect the endangered species in that area. So we're looking at, you know, how long, you know, we can max it out where people can go through the road. I really don't want to have to close the road at all, but, you know, we'll see.
Yeah. I've been asked a couple of questions about people trying to walk out, and I'm like, guys, I would not advise about trespassing on an active military base.
Yeah, we were talking. Yeah, it's kind of interesting. Maybe I'll ask Ken to talk about some of the things that can happen that, you know, you don't think about when you just see it kind of slowly going out, but there are still possibilities of incandescent, what are you saying, lava bombs or?
Well, you know, up there, I mean, one of the things is as this grows, you know, it's already 20, 25 feet tall. And yeah, incandescent blocks of lava can come down and bounce down there pretty great distances away, you know. The other thing that can happen is, you know, it looks slow and sluggish, but in the core of it is a much more fluid lava, like similar to the stuff that's coming down the channels. So in the very center of it, so if the front were to open up enough, that fluid lava can surge out and it can cover a couple hundred yards in a very, very short period of time. So even though that average advance rate is quite slow, we're looking at 25 yards an hour, you know, you could actually have stuff come out and cover 50 to 100 yards or more in a matter of, 10, 20 seconds too.
Yeah. We know that DOT has some time limitations on, how far in advance they're going to need to close the road. And, the other thing that they look at there is making sure that we can safely get people out of there. So there's a bunch of variables. We continue to discuss them. My goal is as long as we can safely allow vehicles to go through, my request to the state will be to keep it open. Remember, this is not a county road. Even the traffic hazard mitigation route is not a county road. So, although I'm the mayor, I don't have the final say on that.
All right.
But I'm, we lobbied. It was, the lobbying for the road that came from us. The lobbying to, keep open, has come from us. And there has been some people, and you guys probably saw that, where there was a desire to close the road last week. And it's like, wait, we're not there yet. And so there was discussions, but I think, listening to people like Ken and other people who have knowledge of this stuff, we were able to keep the road open at this point.
If I can follow up.
Sure.
So we realize that those are state issues, but are you aware of, or is it a possibility that the state would make any alternate route on higher ground? Is a question we're getting asked pretty often.
So that's an interesting question. I'm going to bring that back to the state guys when they're in here with us in the next couple of days. I'm not aware of any. I'm not aware of any right now.
Yeah, the complication with that, Philip, is that the land on the Mauna Kea side is Department of Hawaiian Homelands, so it's no longer DLNR. The kind of the highway is kind of the boundary between the two. So, there's a lot of people that would have to talk, and yeah. So, I think, that may come to that, but why worry about things that haven't happened yet is kind of, I think, even though people are talking and discussing all these options, there haven't been those real serious discussions about doing that.
And I got to tell you, this is a very interesting week for everything to be happening, because a lot of those positions are changing over with the governor. They have new directors coming in, and just going through the whole exercise with the traffic hazard mitigation route, it's very complicated.
Yeah, no, it's impressive that it's working so well. Can I go ahead?
That's why it.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
I still had a couple follow-ups on a couple of things I already said. I just don't want to lose a train here. So still in the state, and you guys mentioned endangered species, and we've heard the concern about Pu'uhuluhulu itself. Are you aware of any mitigation plans in case that flow would come close to Pu'uhuluhulu itself, not coming to the road, but the fire hazard there for those endangered species?
Yeah, and I can say that I've done a fair amount of work up on Pu'uhuluhulu, looking at the geology of it, and yeah, you want to stay on the trails because they've been massively replanting endangered species up there. There's been I don't even know, they're working with lots of local kids and local groups to do it, but trying to really encourage the native forest and this really great native forest to grow up there again.
So I know that there's conversations. I don't know that there are any firm decisions. There's conversation about closing the route, but it looks like people still are going up there. But those, like I said, those are conversations because of the endangered species, and they're really trying to protect the endangered species as well.
Yeah, that's the first step conversation. So that's great to hear that's going on. And one last one, if you don't mind, Dan, can mention the flow front itself. 20 to 25 feet high, is that what you said at the flow front? Is it thicker in other places in the middle, or is that the range you guys are seeing?
Yeah, not right on the edge. It's more towards the center.
How thick do you think it is on a flat part at the front at the maximum estimate?
I don't know. I haven't been there, so I can't really say.
Fair enough.
All right. I had a few follow-up questions as well. Try and get through these. First one is, oh, sorry.
Go ahead.
First one is about flow speed and the stability of it, right? In 2018 and 2014, we saw as the lava flows were coming down, highly variable flow speeds at that distal tip, that leading edge. How much has it varied in this eruption in the last couple of days, at least? Is it pretty consistent, that the rate you gave us earlier?
Well, you realize when it was coming down the hill, it was coming down a lot faster than it's coming
Right.
down once we're hitting the flatlands.
Yeah, so what you have to conserve is, as you all know from taking high school physics, you have to conserve mass. So, so the volume of material coming down is staying pretty constant. The speeds change depend on the slopes and how constrained it is, right? So it's moving very fast in the channels up above, something like 12 to 15 meters a second. But when it gets down in the flow front, right, it's moving way slower than that. It's only moving, on the order of 25 meters per hour. So quite a difference.
And that hasn't fluctuated, that 25 meters an hour for the past couple days type of thing. Has been pretty steady.
Oh, well, I wouldn't go so far to say that, because again, that's, we're just marking a few points out there and estimating those things and doing an average, but our averages have been,
Holding.
close into the same numbers, but it is just an average, and it's probably plus or minus a few meters, right?
Right. All right. Next question for Mayor Roth about the road closure timing. Going back to that a little bit. We've been seeing a bunch of people being like comments coming on to Tracker. People like, I heard the road is closed. Saddle Road's closing in the morning and things like that. So what could people's expectations be in towards, like, what can they expect from the county? Like, we're preparing to closing the road, announcements, public releases that's going to be, if it were to happen.
I'm guessing, and right now it's a guess, that we'll have at least a day notice.
Okay.
And, at that time, we'll probably be putting out notices on, Civil Defense website, our website. We'll probably be asking you to come on your channel and say, hey, Dave and Philip, we want to get this word out there to people. We're probably going to the radio stations and things like that. I can tell you that, we haven't even had that discussion like, oh, we got to close it tomorrow or anything like that. But as we get closer to the road, it is fair to say that, those decisions become a lot more heated in pardon the fun.
You're very good with those.
In the EOC, those that want to, the hawks and the doves, those who want to close it, those who want to keep it open, and as you can imagine, there's generally going to be those kinds of decisions. But you should have that information out on a whole bunch of different media fronts, including yours, if that happens.
All right.
Then we're making the decision.
So it'll be loud, and it will be at least, or try and get a day beforehand type of thing. So people have a little warning, they can plan their next day, their commutes, all that kind of stuff.
Unless, and here's the one caveat. Right now it's coming out as and it's thick. And I just learned something today that you could have something inside where it breaks open and all of a sudden it's coming out flowing like water or something like that.
Well, it'd be a lot more fluid, yeah. So if the flow surges, it could move rather fast, but we haven't observed that surging behavior to any extent yet. So hopefully it just stays moving the way it is as kind of a constant flow. In which case we should have no problem, giving a 24 to 48 hour warning of when it's likely to actually start encroaching on the road.
All right. I am seeing
and a big part of that is the reason why we don't wait all the way till it gets up to the highway to make those notices. We need to make sure that everybody's out of there.
Right.
And so those plans, on once we make that decision, there are plans on how to do that.
I'm seeing this question pop up in several places, so I'm just going to go ahead and ask it. At this point in time, what is the risk to Hilo and Kona side on this flow?
Next week, pretty much zero, but I'll let you.
Well, I mean, everywhere on the island is pretty much at risk because, everywhere you look, you're on a volcano. The risk varies from volcano to volcano, and that's what the hazard zone map tries to encapsulate, right? There's a number of different hazard zones that describe that risk. That said, historically, lava flows from Maunaloa have only encroached into Hilo twice in the last couple hundred years. So, what are the odds that this flow will get into Hilo? They're pretty small, especially the way it's coming down and having to take the right-hand turn. That would be very much a long shot, thinking that this flow would actually make it down into Hilo at this point. And Kona, just the sort of low area, if you just track the steepest lines of descent, have the lava flows looking like they're going to come in somewhat south of Spencer Beach Park. But, nobody really knows for sure over there. And it's very, 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 very super unlikely that they could ever go down any of those tracks.
I was going to say, I've talked to a lot of mainland news, big news terms. I think they may take a bet with you on it because it sounds like, when you listen to them, that it's about to happen.
Yeah,
they're, trying to sell fear, but so far none of them have taken my bet either.
Yeah. I mean, I don't want to downplay that, at some point, lava could enter into Hilo. That's a very serious thing for the residents there, or go through Kaumana, or, any of the other issues like that. But on the other hand, I don't want to induce unnecessary anxiety into people, making them think their community is next in line to get destroyed.
Right. I was saying, if it is trying to get into Hilo, it's sure taking the long way to get there.
It took a turn that slows it down, and then it's not traveling on the fastest bus either.
True. All right. Well, I think that gets me through most of the questions. I'm looking here for any. Do you have any more, Phil? Before.
I think we've covered a lot of it before. People, maybe it's just to restate. People were asking, can you hike out to the lava? Is it that legal to do? Thanks for making that clear.
We did have not yet. No. Question we have is also, are you monitoring the air quality for SO2 up at the viewing area?
So they do have air quality checks that the Department of Health, and I understand the fire departments brought out the portable ones. So if there was issues, they would go off kind of like a meter thing. Sure.
I'm not aware of what they've got out there, but yeah, they do. It's like the ones the park has. So they do let you know when it's getting into dangerous breathing levels.
Right. All right. Well, I think that does it for me and all the questions. If you two could stick around for 1 second after we end the stream, I just talk for a quick second. I believe we've gotten through everything. This was Mayor Mitch Roth and scientist in charge of USGS HVO, Ken Hahn. I appreciate your time, gentlemen. I'm joined by Philip Ong, as always. I'm Dane DuPont from Hawaii Tracker. Until next time, aloha, everyone.